Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everyone. My name is Jeremy Walsh, and I'm the Director of Support, Training, and Documentation for BNI Connect. I'd like to welcome everybody to the webinar today. Today's webinar is our fifth part of our five-part series of member webinars, where we go through just about everything at a member level in BNI Connect. But we break it down into bite-sized portions rather than have a big, long 3 or 4 hour training. We do about a half-hour sessions, and we split it into the various different aspects or components of BNI Connect. So we started this series off with getting started and getting your profile filled out, which is the first step. Then we went off to find out how do we use the online slips to track all of our weekly activity, and we talked about passing referrals and one-to-ones and thank you for closed business. Then we went into the social media side of BNI Connect, where we talked about how do we look in BNI for other BNI members around the world, whether it's to utilize their services or maybe to start up a referral relationship. Yesterday, we dug a little bit deeper into BNI Connect. We looked at some of the statistical reports and functionality that goes beyond the home screen to, again, dig a little bit deeper into BNI Connect. Today, we're going to be focusing just on visitors. As we all know, visitors are the pipeline, the lifeblood of our chapters. Without visitors, we won't have new members, and without new members, then the chapters eventually kind of, no longer remain in existence. But BNI Connect can help you with many aspects of that visitor process, and that's really what we're going to be talking about today, are the different ways in which BNI Connect helps that visitor flow. And I'll even share with you a couple of success stories that I've personally had. By the way, I am a BNI member. I've been a member since 2002, so I've been attending meetings and inviting visitors for a very long time, and I can tell you since starting to use a lot of the processes in BNI Connect, I've seen my success rate of inviting visitors increase dramatically. So before we get started, just a couple of very, very quick housekeeping things. Firstly, this is a live webinar. If you're here with me today, then that means that you can ask me questions. So as we're going through the material today, all you need to do is to type the question in. So there's a questions panel, and just type that question into the questions panel. I'll see that pop up on my screen, and as we're going through the material today, I can address that question. Alternatively, if it has nothing to do with visitors whatsoever, I'm always happy to answer all questions, but I'll save those non-related visitor ones until the end, but I will stay on this call until every single question is answered, even if it does take longer than 30 minutes. We do record all of these webinars, so a great referral for me is to please invite other people to these live webinars, but in the absence of that, then to share the recordings. And the recordings you'll find in a couple of different places. You'll find them on our support site, support.bniconnect.com, but also on our YouTube channel, where we have our entire collection of videos up there. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with today's topic, and that is visitors in BNI Connect. Now, trust me, this is not going to be just a PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to jump into BNI Connect and show you a couple of things as well. But the first thing I really want to show you is this kind of flow chart. This is the flow of visitors in BNI Connect. And this is kind of an important piece. By the way, this particular graphic, this is part of a 53-page manual on BNI Connect. If you would like a copy of that, I will drop it in just a second into the handouts portion of this GoToWebinar software. You should see it appear momentarily in the handouts portion. There'll be a document. If you happen to be listening to this live, in a recording, all you have to do is email support@bniconnect.com. Again, that's support@bniconnect.com, and we will gladly get you off a copy of that manual. But there are three different kind of stages that BNI Connect can help you with this flow of visitors. Now, the first Mike-Lynn, before I get into that, Mike-Lynn says, will the PowerPoint be available via email after the webinar? If you'd like a copy of this, this is actually part of these couple of slides that I'm going to show you. I'm only going to be showing you really 2 or 3 slides. They're part of a bigger presentation called The Power of Connect. I'm happy to make this PowerPoint available to you, although again it has, it's probably 60 or 70 slides, whereas I'm only going to be showing you the first couple of slides. So. But if you want it, Mike-Lynn, just go ahead and shoot me an email, please, support@bniconnect.com, and specifically ask for the Power of Connect PowerPoint, and I will get that off to you. Okay? Awesome. So anyway, going back to this, this quick slide here, and we have the 3 stages of visitors in BNI Connect. So first we have, the invitation phase, and this is where, you're actually approaching somebody and saying, hey, would you like to come to a BNI meeting? And BNI Connect can help you with that part of the process in that we have a visitor invitation that makes it really, really, really easy to, say the right words to a visitor to get them to a chapter meeting. The second part of this process, and really this middle piece here, this is the most important part of the entire process, and that is having your visitors RSVP to the upcoming meeting. Or in the alternative is that you can register your visitor for an upcoming meeting. All right, and then afterwards, we also have an entire visitor follow-up process. Now, I usually don't go into that too much here because that's more for the visitor hosts and your leadership team of your chapter. But if anybody wants to review that a little bit more at the end, just let me know and I'd be happy to do so. But let's take a look first at this very first part of it, and that's the inviting visitors process. So let me jump over to BNI Connect now and show you that first part of the process here. So here I am in BNI Connect, and this is just on my home screen. Now, to get to some of these other functions, we are going to have to dive into that scary place beyond the home page. And the place where we're going to find the visitor invitation is going to be under Operations. So if we go to Operations and we go to the chapter menu, so Operations Chapter, what we're going to look for here is Create Email. So Operations Chapter, Create Email, and the second one down here says Email Visitor Invitation. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind. The Email Visitor Invitation, what we're going to do, we're going to just fill out the couple of fields, and it's going to send an invitation out. The thing with this is that BNI is not and never will be a cold call organization. This email was designed as a follow-up to a verbal invitation. Again, I can't stress that enough. This is designed as a follow-up to a verbal invitation. This is not meant for you to just go and take a bunch of email addresses and blast out a bunch of invitations. That is definitely not what this is for. The way that this is supposed to be used is, let's say that you go to a networking event. Like I'm actually on the board of my local Chamber of Commerce. So I go to a lot of networking events, and I'll go to these networking events and I'll maybe see somebody there that might be a good fit for our chapter, or maybe I just want to introduce them to some of the people in our chapter. So I'll approach them, I'll say, hey, it's great. Nice to meet you. By the way, I'd love to refer you to or introduce you to some of my referral partners. We meet on Thursdays at 7 o'clock. Would you mind if I invite you to one of those meetings? When they say yes, that is now when you can send them the invitation. Great. Do you mind if I send you a follow-up invitation? Absolutely. This is where we can get the information about your meeting into their hands. So let's say that I met, I met John Smith from Smith Co. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my own email address in here so that I get the copy of this. By the way, it will automatically CC you on the email. That way you know that the email went out, and you'll also see what went out with the email. So if we ever change the design of it or anything like that, you will see a copy of what gets sent. Now down here is the personal message. The personal message is kind of going to be the header of this email invitation. So I usually like to put something in here that says, hey, this is Jeremy, here's the invitation I promised, something like that. So maybe I'll put in, it was great meeting you at the chamber event. Here is the invite I promised. Please be sure to RSVP. Right, so this is a personal message in my own voice with my own words to make sure that they know that this is coming from a real person, that's coming from you. So I'm going to click send, and what happens now, it's just going to take that information. As I said, you will be automatically CC'd on that email. So you will get a copy of it in your inbox pretty much immediately. I mean, as soon as you click send, really this invitation is sent out. And here it is here. So this is the BNI Burr chapter. That's where I'm running this test from in Antarctica. It was great meeting you at the chamber event. Here's the invite that I promised. Please be sure to RSVP. Right, and it has a nice graphic in here. How will you grow your business? Hi, John, and a brief introduction of what BNI is all about. It has a link here to find out more about BNI. Now, if I click that link, you'll notice that there's a whole website dedicated just to explaining what BNI is. So it lets people know we're a word-of-mouth organization. It tells people about BNI. It has some nice videos in it, and this website was designed with the potential visitor in mind that wants to know a little bit more before they go to a chapter meeting. But within the email, there's also all of your chapter address, what day you meet, what time you meet, and the RSVP Now button. Now here is the most important part of this. And again, going back to our graphic earlier, this begins this phase 2, the second part of this. Okay, now once a member clicks RSVP Now, what it will do is it will take them to your chapter's registration page. Okay, this is your chapter's registration page. So this happens to be the BNI Burr chapter. So we can choose the date that we're going to visit. So you can only choose a future date. So I'm going to choose the 26th. And this is John Smith. So John Smith is registering from Smith Co. And the nice thing about this also is that if you happen to be a visitor host, this actually makes your job a lot easier because the member or the visitor is entering their own information, which means it's actually a lot more likely that it's going to be correct. So we put their information in and the email address, industry, and classification. They can also choose they don't know, and that'll allow them to type it in. Invited by Jeremy Walsh, and a CAPTCHA code. Now once I click submit, this is going to start a whole process, and I'll show you that in just one second. So that's if a member RSVPs. By the way, if you haven't sent an invitation but you would like to register a visitor, you can always do that. Right under the operations menu, you'll notice that there's a manage visitors, and everybody should see a thing that says register a prospective visitor. You may not see these other options unless you're a visitor host, but everybody should see register a prospective visitor. And from here, it's essentially the same form, it's just that it's on the inside of BNI Connect, not on the web page. And by the way, they don't need an invite to register themselves either. If I just go, for example, to our Antarctica site, which is antarcticreferrals.com, and let me go find a chapter. I heard about this Burr chapter, and here it is. I can see some of the other members, and of course there's a button here that says visit this chapter. This is the same exact form, and then if I happen to be browsing the net and I hit the chapter's website, we also can visit the chapter by clicking clicking the link here. So we make it as easy as possible in many, many places to get the visitor to register themselves for an upcoming meeting. But what happens is after they register, again, this starts a whole email chain and process. So the first thing is that that visitor is now confirmed. And this is really, this is what changes the perspective of the visitor. Because let me ask you, have you ever invited a visitor that didn't show up to the meeting? Yeah, I know I have, and I can't be the only one that has invited visitors that don't show up. But if you think about it, a lot of times it might be hard to think about before you really understood what BNI was about. I mean, I've been a BNI member for 15 years, so I've gone to hundreds and hundreds of BNI meetings. So they're pretty much just second nature at this point. But before I had been to a BNI meeting, I had only been to a couple of other networking events, and those networking events were like, just typical networking, a big room full of 100 people, you're kind of shaking hands and very informal. Maybe there's a raffle prize drawing at the end or something, but again, a very informal, unstructured meeting with a lot of people. So when somebody invites me to a BNI networking meeting, before I get to a BNI meeting, I'm thinking, oh, well, this is just another BNI meeting, another networking meeting. So when the alarm clock goes off at, oh, God, 30 in the morning, because this isn't a nighttime networking event, this is, bright and early in the morning, I'm thinking, yeah, you know what? Nobody's going to miss me if I'm not there. However, once somebody has self-registered for the meeting, now the mentality has changed. Now it's, oh, I RSVP'd. Now somebody's expecting me to be there. And it makes it much harder for them to just blow it off and not show up. So it will give them an email confirming, and it does say, you are officially confirmed to visit the BNI Burr chapter. It will also notify the leadership team. So the president and the vice president and the secretary treasurer and all the visitor hosts and the director consultant will all get a copy of this registration that then lets them know, hey, by the way, you guys have a registered visitor coming for this week's meeting. So now they can take that information. Maybe they can even pre-follow up with the visitor. Hey, John, I noticed that you sell insurance. We happen to have a commercial insurance person that's been looking for a personal lines insurance for a really long time. So you can do other things with that information as well, such as have a name badge ready for that visitor when they show up to the meeting. Right? All these things, all these ways that you can make that visitor feel even more welcome at that meeting before they even show up. Mike has a quick question, says, I was on leadership team last year and as such would get notifications. As the growth coordinator this year, can I continue to receive those notifications? Unfortunately, they don't go to growth coordinators, and that's kind of an aha. I wonder why they don't go to growth coordinators, but that's something that the programmers would have to change. So while I can make the request, and I think it's a brilliant request, why wouldn't the growth coordinator get notified? The best thing to do is to ask them to add you as a visitor host as well. You can be listed as both a visitor host and a growth coordinator at the same time. So I would make that request of your director consultant or your executive director. All right, does that help, Michaelin? All right. So it will also send that potential visitor a reminder 2 days before the meeting. So they will get their notice saying, by the way, you're registered to visit this meeting in 2 days, which is now a prompt for them to show up. Now, the third part of this is that we also have a follow-up process. So for any visitor hosts that are on the line with us today, the nice part about this is that when you actually go in and you are now entering your visitors online, or they're registering themselves, after the meeting, all you have to do is go into Manage Registered Visitors. You can do a search for visitors, registered visitors, And after that visitor has shown up, for example, let's say Visi Visitor actually showed up to the meeting this week. We can go in and edit this. And we can now just, instead of having to type all the information in, all we have to do is click on Visitor Attended. Once we do that, we can make the choice about adding the visitor to the POMs, verify all the information, change any information, add any information, and then choose whether or not to send them a follow-up email. So rather than have to type that all in, this visitor is now no longer a prospective visitor that'll go into the visitor database. The person will get credit for it, all without having to read the chicken scratch off of the sign-in sheet and fight your way through that data entry. And of course, as I said, that will send Visi here, that was just in there, that will send Visi a email message saying, thank you so much for visiting BNI. And here it is now. Thank you so much. Excuse me. Thank you so much for visiting. We wanted to take a moment to thank you. A little bit more information about BNI. So, and that kind of closes the loop. Of course, there's all this reporting that's available, so you can always go back into the reports section, for example, and go in and view your visitor history. So not only do we have a visitor registration report, which will show us all of the visitors that are registered for upcoming meetings. I mean, think about how helpful that would be for, let's say, a visitor's day, to know how many people are coming to a visitor's day. This report is really helpful for that. You can even export it to Excel or email it out to your chapter. Then once you start recording your visitors that come to the meeting, now you have a chapter visitor report. And why not go back? Let's say that you're having a visitor's day coming up, in, let's say, October or November. Why not go back and look at all of the visitors that have come to your meeting over the past year and see if any of them should be re-invited back to another visitor, to come back as a visitor again, right? The number one reason people don't join BNI is that they're not asked to join, or maybe they were a little uncomfortable the first time, and the second visit is when they actually make the commitment. Connie has a question. She says, how do we register a sub if we have a sub? So you don't really register subs. You can register the sub as a quote-unquote visitor. However, what we don't do, subs don't really count for credit in the POMS report or anything. So we would want to make sure that the person that's entering the visitors afterwards, that they don't add this visitor to the POMS. But it still can be helpful for subs to be able to have the address, or to be able to get that reminder before the meeting as well. So does that answer your question, Connie? So this is all great in theory, but the proof of the pudding is, does this actually work? Does this process make any difference whatsoever? And again, I've been in BNI for a very long time, and again, I'm still a member. My meeting is tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock in Wakefield, Rhode Island. If anybody is in the general area, if you'd like to come as my visitor, I'd love to register you. But that said, we've invited visitors every way from Sunday, and a couple of years back when we actually released one of these components here, and that was the visitor registration piece, I was the president of my chapter at the time, and I really, really wanted to use this part of the process just to prove that it worked. Here I am, the director of support for BNI worldwide. Might as well use the system, right? So what I did was, we were having a visitors day, and we follow the process to the letter. 40 letters and the phone calls and the follow-ups and all of that. The only change I made, absolutely only change I made, was that I insisted to my chapter. I said, listen, you guys have to register your visitors online through BNI Connect. Here's the instructions to do it. Here's how to do it. I taught them over the course of that 6 or 8 weeks how to do it. So we get to that meeting before our visitors day, and we go around the room, and we do what we've always done. Hey, how many visitors do you have coming? This is kind of the accountability portion, right? So we go around the room. Oh, I have one coming. I have two coming. I have one coming. Oh, I don't have any, but I promise I'll get one. You know, I have one coming. And you know, we have a chapter of 50 people. So by the time we got around the room, averaging 1 to 2 visitors, we're like, oh my goodness, there's going to be like 100 people here next week. You know, we need to let the venue know. We have to make sure that they cook enough food. We have to make sure we have enough chairs. But when I went back to my office and I looked, and I've been asking everybody to register, when I looked at it, there was only 6 visitors listed in that visitor registration report. Like, uh-oh, we have kind of a disconnect here. So I wrote this email to my chapter, and a very simple email. There's only a couple of lines, and I said, okay, guys, we have 6 days until our Visitors Day. We have a whopping 6 registered visitors, and that report that I just showed you, I just copied and pasted the contents right into the email. And I gave them a link. This is a hyperlink to our chapter page so that they could register the visitor. I said, click here to register. Now, the cool thing was pretty much within 5 minutes of sending that, my inbox just starts going, you know, bing, 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 you know, you've got mail. And I was starting to get excited. And by the end of that next 24-hour period, I had 21 registered visitors. I'm like, yes, this is going to be a great Visitors Day. So I said, well, if it works, let me just send this quick reminder email out again. I sent it out. We now had 26 registered visitors. 3 days left until our Visitors Day, 34 registered visitors. 2 days, 39 registered visitors. 13 hours until our Visitors Day, and we had 45 registered visitors. Now, typically, if you've ever run a Visitors Day before, we typically expect between 10 and 50% on a really good day to show up to the meeting, but usually it's closer to 10 to 20%. This Visitors Day, 42 of the 45 visitors showed up to that meeting. And here's the best part. The 3 that didn't show up called. When they got that reminder email saying, by the way, you're registered for this meeting, they called and said, I'm sorry I can't make it. Do you mind if I come another week? To which we said, of course, yes, you can come next week. That would be awesome. This process works. We ended up with 8 new members from this Visitors Day, which is a very successful Visitors Day in my book. So in order for it to work, it has to be repeatable. It can't just be a one-time thing. And on one of our next Visitors Days, we ended up with 25 visitors and 4 applications with that one. Yeah, it's a very simple process. I think a combination of the email piece, prompting people to register their visitors, but honestly, it is that registration piece because it changes the mindset of the visitor. I really feel that is the most important part of the whole thing. So that said, we are at the bottom of the hour. So what I'd like to do is to open this up to any questions, comments, concerns, compliments, criticisms, anything like that. Please feel free to type those in, and I'd be happy to answer them as we're at the bottom of the hour now. And of course, as I said, we will stay on this call until every single question has been asked. Answered. Tongue-tied today for some reason. But yes, please ask questions. I know we have one question from Connie. Says, might be good to have their info for future Visitors Days. So yes, the registered visitors, and you also have a visitors that haven't showed up report and your visitor report. That's a great database essentially to go back to re-invite to your meetings. So excellent point, Connie. Have any other questions, comments, or concerns? All right, just one final reminder. We do these series on a monthly basis, and a good referral for me is to please, if you found this helpful, please recommend these webinars at your chapter. I may not be there to hear it, but drop me a testimonial with your chapter saying that you found that these webinars were helpful, and encourage other members to sign up for them. Mikeland says, this list consists of post-visit entries or also those who have self-registered. So let me go and show you real quick. There are actually 3 different reports. So we're under reports chapter, okay? These are the chapter reports. There's 3 reports here. If we have to scroll down a little bit, but one of them is the chapter visit report. This chapter visit report is essentially the database of anybody who has ever visited your chapter over the course of whatever time frame that is. Okay, so that's people that have been to the meeting. But at the bottom, there's also the visitor registration report. That's people, you'll notice that it has a future date, although you can change it. This is essentially people that have registered for a future meeting, or in other words, kind of like your pipeline report. Okay, then there's a report under that, the visitor not attended report. And this one is essentially people that were registered in the past, but were not marked as having attended. So does that help clarify things, Mikeland? Awesome. And by the way, all of these reports, let me go to the visitor one, for example. Oops, click the wrong button. All of these reports can be exported. So that means if you want to use, like a constant contact or Outlook or anything like that, I can take this whole report. I choose export without headers, which means it won't have all these parameters and stuff in it. But once I get this out to Excel, I can now bring this into, constant contact or send out cards or, anything else you might use, or just, even grab all the email addresses and put those into another email. So hopefully that's helpful. Bradley says, when a visitor gets their welcome message, can they add that to their calendar? That is one of my most, I guess, begging for that functionality. That's something that I ask for all the time. So I can't wait for that to become available, but I'm afraid that the calendar input is not available at this time. But I think that would be amazing once they have that done. But thank you, Bradley. That's a great suggestion. All right, any other questions? All right, just a reminder, this is being recorded. I'll get it converted and up to the support site soon. You can always access the support site. Click on this question mark in the upper right-hand corner, right up here. Click that question mark. That will take you over to the support site. This is support.bniconnect.com. Go to live and recorded webinars. All the October recordings will be up here shortly. We're almost done with the series. And then also upcoming webinars are listed here. The October series is just about finished. However, I will have the November series uploaded and listed very soon. And again, a good referral for me is to get somebody to register for a webinar. That would be awesome. You'll also find the recordings at youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. This has our entire library of webinars and education moments and all sorts of stuff up here. So I do encourage you to subscribe to that if you'd like to have new and updated videos. All right. I don't see anything else listed in the questions, so I'm going to say thank you so much for being here and taking time out of your busy schedules in order to spend a little bit of time with me. I look forward to seeing you on a future webinar, and happy connecting.